bounce it.
Yes, people, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live show. As you can see, we're in the midst of the international break, but there's still plenty of things to talk about. Today, we're going to be discussing the race for the top four. Are Chelsea favourites? Could this be the most tightly contested race for Champions League qualification in recent memory? Loads to dive into as always. And as you can see, I'm not joined by one, I'm joined by two great guests today. Mo, thanks for coming as always, bro. Hope you're doing well. And got Dan in the house as well. Big up to everyone that's already locked in. People, make sure you're smashing the like, subscribing to the channel if you are new round here. Mo, first things first, bro, how you doing? You good?
I'm doing all right. Thank you, guys. If you're watching this now, hit that like button, people. Helps the channel. If you're watching this on the replay, just do it. Hit that like button. Help Charlie. Great content always. So help the guy. Just like the video, people. And let us know in the comments.
Let us know. Yeah, Dan, how you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, all good. Glad to be here, guys, in the chat. Good to see you as well. We're just trying to enjoy the international break without getting too drawn into all this David Coote and England mess, to be honest with you.
No, exactly that. Yeah, let's dive into it then. Race for the top four. Feels a bit weird talking about Chelsea in a race for the top four, but that's kind of where we're at right now. We're not used to that normally back in the glory days, but so far we're sitting third in the table. But one thing I would say is it's shaping up to be one of the closest races for Champions League qualification, certainly in recent memory. You only have to look at the table, and right now, look, we're November, table's starting to take a little bit of shape, and there's 4 points between Chelsea in third and Man United in 13th. Mo, do you think this could be one of the closest races for the top four in recent memory? Do you think there's a lot more teams in the mix now? I know you've got maybe a few outliers in Forest and Brighton up there right now. Brentford aren't a million miles off the pace either, but do you expect those teams to drop off, or do you think we're going to have, maybe 4, 5, 6 teams going for that fourth spot?
No, I'm not expecting anybody to drop off. I'm expecting everyone to drop off. Actually, I'm actually expecting everyone to be not consistent. Genuinely, by the way, including Chelsea. The only team in that mix that I might think they have a history of, they might go on a run. And when I mean a run, I don't mean 15 games winning streak, but I mean like within 10 games, they went like 6, 8. It's Arsenal. Everyone else, they might go up and down, like the crypto now. You know what I mean? Chelsea might like win this, and then they draw at home to that guy. Brighton is the same. None of these guys will pull away from the back. None. You might see 1 or 2 fall off, like a Fulham. Of course, because Fulham at the current moment are 1 point. You're not expecting game week 25 and Fulham are 1 point behind the fourth place. Because otherwise we're in... Because if that happens, that means the relegation already be decided at game week 25. Because that means a couple of teams will be losing every single game. I'm expecting this to be a race for the ages. And I'm not expecting any of these guys to go close to Liverpool and Man City. Maybe Arsenal. But if you tell me Chelsea are favorites, yes. But again, there's too much to prove yet for Chelsea. Like the games against Forest, the game against Palace, even the game against Arsenal at home, it tells me that Chelsea have not yet cemented their feet on, okay, how are we playing football? How is this team going about games? Home or away? Do we need to have a stamp our authority? Do we need to have only our game plans? This is what I'm waiting for, Chelsea. This is why I guess Chelsea, because of the depth, are favorites, but I'm not going to count out the likes of Villa. I'm just not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, Villa are out of it.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, Dan, do you echo what Mo's saying? Do you think, this could be a race for the ages? You think there's multiple teams in it? And do you think that points to, a better quality in the Premier League? Or do you actually think that maybe a lot more teams have perhaps dropped off, and so they're more dropping down to the level of maybe a Brighton and a Fulham, for example? Or do you think there actually now is the most quality there's been across the Premier League in quite a while?
Yeah, I think it could be a really exciting race, to be honest with you. I don't know how much the title race will be exciting. I'm not sure whether one team's going to pull away, but I do think that race for sort of 3 to 6th, I think that's going to be up in the air for quite some time this season, to be honest. With the quality of the Premier League, I actually think the lower teams in the Prem have managed to close the gap, because I think they've got unbelievable amounts of money compared to what they used to have to recruit probably a better base level of Premier League player. But then I look at some of the other teams. I look at Chelsea's squad. I look at maybe not Arsenal's. Arsenal probably got one of the better squads they've had in a few years. But I think some of the teams in and around the top four have had better teams in years gone by than they have now. I think Tottenham are considerably worse. I think Villa probably are better. Newcastle probably better. Chelsea's squad has definitely been better in the last probably 6 years. If
And
you
you
like.
define Tottenham are worse. You guys
Yeah,
know
'cause
that Tottenham in every metric in the league, they're second.
Really?
Goal difference,
Goals
yes,
conceded?
creation.
I'm joking.
even goals conceded. By the way, they only conceded 13. That's one goal ahead of Arsenal, same as Chelsea.
Yeah,
But there is,
I mean,
it's ridiculous. If you look at the underlying metrics for Spurs, they shouldn't be 10th.
No,
they
but-
are 10th.
But if Spurs had beaten Ipswich, they'd be third. So like it just goes to show how kind of close it is. But I think you
Yeah,
are right though. Like I think there's a what we're seeing is a lack of consistency across the board. Like
Yes.
there shouldn't be this many teams like this close together after 11 games. You would expect there to be some sort of gaps forming. You've got a 5-point gap at the top, but then to have do you know what the Premier League looks like now? It looks like the Championship, where like you can be
Yes.
13th, right? You win 1 or 2 games, suddenly you're third.
You're in the playoffs. Like,
yeah,
you have a chance of going to the Premier League.
that doesn't normally happen. But it goes to show now that not that it didn't before, but every game really matters now. If you lose a couple of games, with Chelsea sitting third right now, we could lose a couple of games after the break. Bang, we could be find ourselves bottom half of the table, and then suddenly the whole narrative changes again. So, I mean, Mo, you mentioned that you think Chelsea might be favourites based on kind of squad depth and whatnot. But when you're looking at the other teams in the race, I mean, the likes of, I think I spoke to you before about this, but you think Newcastle have got a very good chance because they're only playing once a week. Aston Villa are going to be there or thereabouts. People say they're dealing well with the Champions League, but they haven't won a game after the Champions League each time they've had a Champions League match. So that's probably something that maybe they need to work on a little bit. But I mean, what who are you saying maybe
Villa have a problem, Charlie.
you think that they've got a problem?
Yeah. Villa, because you play, and Chelsea are going to face the same problem next season if you make Champions League. In the Champions League, you need to train your players. At least you need to have 15 players of top quality that they can be able to play 2 games a week. I have looked at Arsenal fixtures, for example. From November all the way to January, they play twice a week, every single week. And when you play Champions League football, you cannot tell me that you're going to play your second team every game in the Champions League. That is impossible,
That
basically.
you can't do it.
You lose the games. If Chelsea were in the Champions League and you played the likes of Tosin Adebayo and Badiashile and Enzo Fernandez and Casadei, you're going to lose the games. You're going to lose every game, basically, in the Champions League. So Villa, because the depth is all right and because they have a couple of injuries of Matty Cash, they have to rely on 90 minutes of the likes of Kwanzaa, Carlos, Pau Torres. They're finding it difficult to balance between the game that is right after the Champions League because they are hoping to get a lot of money from the Champions League. Because when you win games in Champions League, you make a lot of money by winning one game. Millions that can cover one player's wage for the rest of the year or 2 players. That is good for the club. And this is why I think they're going to struggle. Champions League first round, guys, go all the way until January, by the way. Not like before, end of November. All the way until January, you are still playing Champions League. It's 8 games. And they started late already this season. And because there are already 3 international breaks, the games goes until January. First round. Let alone if Villa fall off and have to play playoffs. Round the 32. That is extra 2 games. So imagine, because we know that Villa will qualify, right? They already racked some points to qualify. But if they don't qualify in top 8, they might have to play playoffs.
It was extra 2 games, isn't it? Which
So 8 games plus extra 2 games.
Yeah.
10 games and just before you even get to that round of 16. 10 games before you get to the round of 16. That's in comparison to 6 games over the years of the last season. So that is extra 4 games. That's 4 more weeks when you have to play midweek games.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, Dan, you look at obviously where Chelsea are at right now. We're sitting third, but we know that it's not a false position as such. But we know that it can change very quickly. Drop points one week, we might drop 3 or 4 spaces down the table. But I mean, purely from playing in the Conference League, purely from the squad depth that we've got just for this season, would you say Chelsea are the favourites, or do you think, you know, there's other teams that are right up there? Do you think Villa have got just as good a chance, or do you think Newcastle could do something if they keep their best players fit, or do you think it is Chelsea's to lose?
It's a tough one, to be honest with you. I think how we've started the season and where we've looked good early on, scoring a lot of goals against probably lower level teams, I think that's where Chelsea will become favourites for this race. I think against the bigger six teams, we haven't looked awful, but we haven't managed to win yet. And I think ultimately, if a team can match Chelsea's form against lower teams and do better against the big six, I think they're the team that will probably beat us to it. But I think Chelsea will comfortably probably get Champions League football this season, just off of what I've seen and the fact that we're more than likely going to get 5 places in Europe this season.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I mean, it is interesting.
Comfortably.
Do you know why, Mo? Because I actually think come January, a few more players who are probably deemed not good enough will leave. I think one of the centre-backs, Badashile or Dazassi, will go. I've got a funny feeling, and Kunku might. If not, a couple of youngsters who are still worth a bit of money will go. And I think Chelsea will recruit in January, and our squad will only get stronger by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think it's... I would agree. I do think Chelsea are favourites, but this is based on the fact that we've got the options to rotate. The fact we're playing Conference League, which is a significantly weaker competition than the Europa League and the Champions League. And we are able to play 2 different teams on a Thursday and a Sunday, which does help. I mean, obviously, in certain games, it's not helped. It didn't really help us against United a few weeks back. Didn't necessarily help us against Arsenal either. But for me, yes, the record in against the big sides is a concern. We've not been able to haven't been able to beat one of those sides yet. But having said that, if you're going for the top 4, as long as you're beating the sides in and around you, then your record doesn't matter as much against the bigger sides. If you're going for the title, it's a different conversation. But I think you can finish 4th by not having a particularly good record against maybe your Arsenals, your Cities, and your Liverpools. Like, in theory, you could lose 4 or 5 of those games home and away against them, but still finish 4th. So for those reasons, I would put Chelsea as favourites. But Mo, you're not seeing that? Do you think there's other teams?
Not yet. Not better. Not yet, but not better. I think you have an equal chance of getting the 4th place as Villa at the current moment. Yes, Villa will struggle, but I'm looking at Chelsea more than Villa. I said that Villa have problems. The games of Forest, the games of Palace, the game of United, the game of the Arsenal game. I still, like, as much as I think that rotation is good for you, I want to see more consistency. And also, I was so hopeful that Nkunku will be able to get into the fold and be useful, and apparently he's not. Jadon Sancho is ill, whatever you want to call ill, again. You know what I mean? Mudryk is being used. Madueke has fallen off a cliff somehow in the last, 4 weeks or 3 weeks. And I'm looking at the team and I'm thinking, I want more consistency. I am very stubborn about this consistency thing. I won't back a team unless they show me consistency. This up and down thing and change the way you play, I can't trust you. And because Maresca is a new coach, I don't have a faith in him like a Pep Guardiola, even an Arteta. I don't have faith in the guy. I don't know the guy. You guys don't know the guy. He only coached Leicester City. It wasn't that he's coming from the Portuguese league or even the Eredivisie like Arne. He doesn't have any history of us thinking, apart from him talking well to the media. Why should we trust Maresca that he will have this team very, very stable? Looks good. Plan look good. You'll play fluid football. Exciting. But also not consistent. So, to me, I'm still waiting. Emery has more credit in the bank for me because he did it last season.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to say Emery are ahead of you because of the rotation thing, but I'm going to think both the team have equal chances at the current moment. At the current moment, yes. Because I didn't expect you to drop points against Crystal Palace or Forest, to be honest. And that is the case.
If we hadn't dropped those points,
we'd be
second. Were more consistent, we'd be in a title race, not a race for top 4.
You won't be in a title race.
No,
because
we would
Liverpool
have been
or Man
had
City.
we won those games.
The fact that you are close to Liverpool would not. You'll be 4 points. You'll be equal to City at the current moment. Or
Yeah, we'd
that's right.
be equal to City if we
You'll be
beaten
still
Palace
5
and
points
Forest,
behind. And
we'd be ahead. We'd be on level with City. Yeah.
at that time, then, even though you drop points against Liverpool, City, Man United, Arsenal, right? I would still, at that point, I would have said you are favorites to get top 4. At that point, even though, see the point.
Yeah, because you don't think
you
we would have had enough to beat the best teams.
Yeah, you dropped points against the 4 teams or the 3 teams ahead of you and Man United. Because you dropped points against the Forest and the Palaces, now I'm not going to put you top 4. Not yet.
Right.
Yeah. No, I hear it. I think. Look, I don't know what you think, Dan, but for me, I think, look, Chelsea have started well. I think we're all happy with where we're at. There is a slight sense of frustration, maybe mixed feelings that we should maybe be a little bit more secure within that top 4, given we did drop disappointing points at home to Palace, at home to Forest. Games that, if you want to finish in the top 4, you do really need to be winning. And obviously disappointing not to quite get a statement win against the big side yet. We've obviously not passed those tests that we've had so far this season. But, I mean, you look at Chelsea, and another reason why I do fancy us is because you look at the other teams, right? You look at a Villa, you look at a Newcastle, you look at a Tottenham, for example, teams that you would expect to be there or thereabouts, giving us a bit of a push. And I'm not sure how much better those teams can get. Whereas I look at Chelsea and I think, all right, we're 3 or 4 months into Maresca. I still think there's a significant amount of improvement in this team. Whereas I'm not sure how much improvement there is, for example, in a Villa, in a Newcastle, in a Tottenham. How much better can those teams actually get? Whereas I look at Chelsea and think we can probably actually get considerably better.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. I think that's probably the thing that rivals are most fearful of with this Chelsea team, is that the idea behind it, obviously, is that this team's been recruited and put together with the intention of it being dominant for the next decade. And ultimately, when you look at the ages of some of the players, I mean, some of them are performing to a really good level at 21. Where will they be by the time they're like 25, 26, 28? You know, this team could really improve a lot. And I think in a short amount of time under Maresca, we're going to see this team improve a lot. And I actually expect by the end of the season, a lot of the experiments will be finished. And I think Maresca would have found his best 11, injuries obviously permitting. But I think we'll start to see this Chelsea team move forwards quite drastically before the end of the season. I think that puts us in a really good place to push for sure.
No, I would agree. I mean, Mo, how much better do you think Chelsea can get? I mean, I'm not saying that the likes of your Villas and other teams aren't going to improve. So I think they will improve over the course of the season. But would you agree with myself and Dan that you think that Chelsea have got the most room for improvement as a team that's, you know, competing for the top 4?
You have, but I also look at one team. I can't trust them because of the name. I think Brighton can improve under this coach massively. Can they battle for top 4? I'm not sure if they have the depth to do it, but if you look at Brighton, they can improve. Nottingham Forest, I don't think so. The only team that I'm looking is Newcastle. Once Sven Botman comes back, I think we're going to see a different Newcastle. Sven Botman adds a lot to this team. He was one of the best defenders out there, right? He was one of the best.
Sven Botman is very good, actually. He gets a little bit underrated.
The problem is he's coming back from an injury, a back-to-back injury. But we can see that. Also Spurs, though. If Spurs stop focusing on Europa League, I know that we think that Spurs are only 2 points behind Chelsea and the
I was going to say, Mo, quickly, do you think Spurs, what do you think is easier for Spurs, right? Do you think it's easier for them to win the Europa League or easier for them to come fourth? Because both get Champions League. So do you actually think it's easier Europa League win or easier top 4?
Both are tough for them. Spurs are Spursy. I'll never believe in Spurs again, ever in my life.
Yeah, but if you had to pick one for them, though, what do you reckon would be easier?
I would say focus on the league more.
Yeah.
Because the reason why Spurs' style of play is more of a dominant, is more of a league style of play, like a Pep Guardiola. While they're not an adaptable team to play in the cups. Teams that win cups normally are teams that can adapt within the game and can adapt within depending on the opposition. Spurs aren't that team. Postecoglou, he has one way of playing football. Maybe yes, he does some tweaks here and there, but most likely Spurs go to every game trying to dominate position, play one brand of football, play their way. That is more of a league way of playing football, not a Champions League. not a pro Europa League, not a cup team. Mostly the cup teams are the teams that adapt within the game. So Spurs, it's easier for them to focus and get the wins and focus in the league, to be honest, than winning
Yeah.
Europa League.
No, I'd probably agree with that. I think that's about right. I mean, look, you do have to sort of consider Spurs in the race, but because of their lack of consistency, just because of their history of what they do and stuff, it is hard to take them seriously as a team, even though they are fully capable of pulling something out of the bag. They're a team that, for example, would lose to Ipswich last weekend, but then you wouldn't bet against them going to the Etihad after the international break and win it. Yeah. But it goes back to what you were saying before, Mo. That lack of consistency is not going to get you in the top four. But I also think the lack of consistency is shown by all those teams that are in such a short gap between them all, is because all of those teams have demonstrated so far this season a total lack of consistency. So that's why we're in a position where the gap is so small. You look at Man United, for example. I mean, Dan, can we rule Man United out the race for the top four? They're 13th and they're 4 points off third. Amorim's coming, and I'm not saying they're going to get in the top four. I don't believe they will, but I'm not sure even they can be ruled out of the race given how close things are right now.
No, I know it's where they are in the league, but they're probably the lowest placed team right now to ever be sort of considered in a race for Europe at 13th. But that's just showing how difficult this league is proving to be. I think the one thing we can say for sure with Van Nistelrooy's small spell in charge is that there is definitely better in this Manchester United team than what Ten Hag was getting out of it, right? And the fact that they went unbeaten for 4 games says to me that they'll probably move up the table. I think it just depends how quickly this team take to Amorim's tactic and what their recruitment looks like in January. I think if they manage to recruit really well and he hits the ground running, I actually think they could be in a race for top 4 because that gap is so small. I mean, look at where Chelsea were in a very similar place last year, a lot later into the season, and we got incredibly close. And I would actually say Manchester United are probably in a pretty favourable position to definitely get Europe next year.
Mo, how do you see United? Obviously, under Ten Hag, poor. Rude's come in, slight steadying of the ship, few decent results, and Amorim's coming in after the international break. It is still the same group of players. They're probably going to go and strengthen in January, you'd imagine. Do you consider them? Do you think they could be? They could be contenders for the top 4. Do you think that's way too premature?
If United finish top 4, everyone that will finish below them should get sacked.
Fair.
Like from the teams, from Chelsea, Newcastle, Spurs, and Villa, the manager should get sacked or should get fined.
So do you think that if United were able to do that, that would reflect more on other teams doing badly rather than them doing well? What do you think they can do under Amorim though? Like, surely they've got to be looking at a top 6.
They can get top 4. They can. But the reality is, okay, let me give you why I'm saying this. Number 1, there is about 3 teams that need to be bad for Man United to get top 4. Yep. Amorim comes in. He plays a completely different brand of football than one these players have played all their career. Everyone, apart from one guy, which is Ugarte in the middle. None of them played 3 at the back with wing backs before. None. 0. Amorim need to fix the mentality of the club. What I mean by the mentality of the players, the mentality that we're going to every game to win the games. It doesn't matter who the opposition is, we're winning the game. We're favorites to win the game. There are a lot of players that will get upset with their playing times. Already, some of these players are used to actually complain in the media about their playing times. Now, with Amorim, they don't have to. So that means there is many things. I'm not going to say he's going to do bad. He can get top 6. But the reality is he has a very tough job in comparison with Maresca, Emery, Eddie Howe, and Postecoglou, because he's still coming in mid-season after, yes, Rude won a couple of games, but people have not forgotten that these players have been coached 3 years under Ten Hag or 2.5 years. You need to get that out of them first, then embed your ideas. The thing about the difference between Maresca, Chelsea ended last season, in the second half of the season, they were the 3rd best team in the country, in the Premier League. So that is much easier. Man United, we just forgot how bad Ten Hag time was. So that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Amorim might be one of the better coaches in the league. Might be better than Maresca, than Ange, than Arteta, maybe. You can say that, right? But it's all about the environment, the club, the players that are there. He needs to utilize Xerxes. They spend money on this guy. By the way, he needs to find a third centre back to play. Is it going to be a Maguire, a Lindelof? Who is that guy? Is it Alen Yoro, a youngster?
Well, it'd
He's
be
gonna have
Euro,
wing
wouldn't
back.
it? You would
It
have thought
might
it'd
be.
be Euro.
Euro's still coming back. So from
I mean,
injury.
I would have. Look, I don't think they can be fully ruled out. I would have given them a lot more of a chance if they'd made that change in the summer and Amorim had come in the summer and he'd had the window to bring in players he wanted to bring in. I think they would have been right up there. I'm not saying they can't get up there, but I do agree with you, Mo. I think it would require a lot of teams to significantly drop off for United to even be in that race. I think they can definitely. I think they could come 5th or 6th for sure. You know, I think that's probably the ceiling of this squad right now. But yeah, I wouldn't say they were in the race for the Champions League, but they do need to be taken seriously. But I don't know. I just don't know.
Who do you think have better chance, Spurs or Man United to make top 4?
Probably. Do you know what I would say, right? I'd probably say Man United because I think they've got significant room for improvement. Whereas Spurs, I'm not sure they've got that much room for improvement. I mean, Dan, what do you reckon? Who do you reckon has got more of a chance?
Yeah, I was just having a look at Manchester United's running. They've got, I mean, Ruben's got a couple of tough games as he gets in. He's got Arsenal in there and he's got Man City. And then after, I mean,
what are those back to back?
Arsenal. No, it actually goes Arsenal, Forest, Man City.
That's tough.
So he's got Ipswich, Everton. So his first 5 games: Ipswich, Everton, Arsenal, Forest, City. Then after that, actually, don't get that much. They got Newcastle and Liverpool in the next 7.
And then Bournemouth, which is flying at the current moment.
Do you know what? He's got... I mean, arguably, actually, if I just looking at the fixtures they've already had, that was probably Manchester United's easier fixtures, and they've actually not navigated them very well at all. I'll be honest, they've got a bit of a tough run-in, so they're really going to have to hit the ground running. But I probably side with you a bit. As much as Mo was saying about the underlying metrics for Tottenham, I just don't think Tottenham are going to get consistent. I just don't see it in their team. And I think Manchester United have showed that, albeit only a really small sample, that they've got consistency within this team. It just needs to be used right. And I also think they'll recruit in January. I'll be so shocked if they don't.
Oh, mate, they're definitely going to spend in January. Like, yeah, there's no way he's not strengthening that squad. I mean, do we think Arsenal are in a race for the top 4? I know, like, we like to banter about Arsenal and stuff, and look, they've not been particularly good this season. But having said that, they're still, I mean, look, they're still there or thereabouts. I personally think they're out of it now, just because in recent history it suggests you can't afford to drop 9-10 points off the top of the league, given the standards that have been set. Mo, do you think Arsenal are in danger of dropping into a race for the top 4? Do you think they are in a race for the top 4? Where are you standing with them?
No, they're not. There is a difference there's a gap between Chelsea and Arsenal and the rest of the people. History, like last season and the season before, show us this. Like Arteta has worked with this team way longer than everyone else. I don't think they're gonna be. I don't think in the next 10 games Arsenal will not be in that mix of top 4. They might be 3rd at that time, and they will have like a 6 or 7 points gap between them and the rest of the pack behind them, and they won't be in that. It will be similar to last season. Whoever is going to win the league, whoever is going to finish 2nd or 3rd, it will be that much difference, like between Villa and Liverpool of last season, which was 15 points at the end of the season.
I'll be honest. You look at Arsenal's run. I'm just having a look at it now. I mean, obviously, we know they went 2 points from 12 from Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea was 2 points from 12. But you look at their run after the break, up until really after Christmas. For the rest of this year, it's not bad. They've got Nottingham Forest at home after the break. Then they go Sporting Lisbon away in the Champions League. They've got West Ham away, Man United at home, Fulham away, Monaco in the Champions League, Everton home, Palace home. That Palace home's a quarterfinal. Forget that. They got Everton at home, then Palace away, and then Ipswich at home. So you look at the teams they're facing there. Arguably, the most difficult match they've got is probably, well, on current form, is the most difficult match is probably Forest at home or Fulham away. Their fixtures there are pretty decent after the break. So as much as I'd like to say Arsenal are in a top 4 race, I still think they'd still have to drop a significant amount of points for them to find themselves in a bit of trouble. I mean, Dan, what are you saying with Arsenal? I mean, as much as we like to think they're in a top 4 race, do you think there still needs to be a bit more drop off from them before the panic button's set on maybe missing out on the Champions League?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realise it was 2-12. That's not very good. If they continue on that form and don't pick up, then yeah, they could be looking over their shoulder a little bit more. I mean, they're 4th in the table, but they probably don't feel like they're 4th. I think what Mo's saying is that they know themselves that I think with the return of Odegaard, actually, I think they'll start moving. They'll probably move above Chelsea. I think they probably will. Just looking at all those fixtures you read out there, Charlie, until the 25th of January, they barely leave London. Like, they're at home or playing a London club, and they've got Sporting away. Other than that, they're not even travelling. Like, they're going to be hitting some form, I would think.
No, mate, they're not leaving. No, you're right, mate. Other than Sporting away or Spot on, they don't leave London.
Well, they go to Brighton, which is half hour outside, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're not leaving London.
They've got some very favourable fixtures there to sort of pick it up. And
mate, they're not leaving London until January 25th when they play Wolves away. Yeah, so they're not leaving London until then in the Premier League. Yeah, that's mental.
So I think they'll be all right, to be honest with you. I think what I noticed against us, I felt like first half he wasn't amazing, but second half Odegaard really grew into the game, and I feel like you can just see it's so clear how they wanna play when he's on the pitch. I think when he's not there, I've been very confused about how Arsenal want to play football, and I think their results have proven that. So I think they'll be all right. And they're also another team I believe will strengthen in Jan. I think because of the way the title and race and top 4 race has gone, I think teams will be looking to strengthen in January, because I think injuries have rocked both Arsenal and Manchester City massively. I think they're probably shocked at how Chelsea's squad has improved in a short amount of time to be back amongst the race. I think quite a few teams are going to favour their chances in what is an incredibly close sort of Premier League top 6 to 8 to strengthen and improve and see where they can get. So I expect a busy January off the back of last year's being really quiet, actually.
No, I mean, Mo, do you agree? Do you think sort of the Champions League qualification could come down to who does decent business in January and strengthening the squads there where they potentially need to be strengthened? Do you think that could be the difference potentially?
I actually don't think. I disagree a little bit about the amount of business that people think clubs will do in January. I don't think it will be that heavy because of the money and because of the PSR and stuff like that. I don't think there will be a lot of business in January. Maybe Man United, maybe not a lot as well. I don't think it will be a lot. It might depend on where you are on the table. I don't expect Arsenal to do massive business in January. Maybe City will buy a player or something. I don't expect there's going to be a lot of business in January. Not as much as we think or other people think, to be honest. I think it will, in my opinion, that top 4 race will rely on one thing: the stability of your team, how stable your team is. What I mean by Chelsea is that at the current moment, if you look at Chelsea, who's your left winger? Who's your right winger? Nobody knows. I've read articles today that he's trying to integrate Mudryk to be actually a starter in the Premier League. To have Neto on the right and Mudryk on the left.
I think he deserves it.
And then what happens to Sancho and Madueke? And can you imagine? Okay, here's the thing. It's all about the personality of Maresca. I just want you to imagine a situation where comes the Premier League games, Pedro Neto and Mudryk are starting in the league, and comes Conference League when you're playing an F9 team or a team that you don't know the name, and Jadon Sancho and Madueke are starting. How do you think that will affect the squad? Already Nkunku is expressing concerns about his time. Already. I've imagined that. What is going to happen to the team?
Yeah, but I think that's a bit...
How is he going to manage?
I get what you're saying, but I think when it's a player like an Nkunku or a Felix, for example, where they're a bit more established, they're a bit more experienced, and they didn't sign for certainly in Nkunku's case, he didn't sign for the club to be a Thursday night cup player. he's signed to sort of be a main man. Whereas I think the likes of Madueke,
Sancho.
like but even Sancho, like Sancho.
You really think Sancho is going to be content with Conference League football?
No, but I don't think he's just going to play Conference League football. I think Sancho as well. Sancho needed Chelsea more than we needed him. You know, this like we've given him a lifeline at a big club for him to try and resurrect his career, where perhaps no one else would have been willing to take that chance on him, given what's happened. Look, I do understand to a degree how sometimes rotation can be destabilizing, but you know, we've got these players to keep happy, so we kind of have to do it. And look, Dan, we've spoken about this before, but you throw it forward. Let's say Chelsea do finish in the top 4, then you know you've got Kendry Pires and Esteval Willian coming next summer already before any other business has even been done. That's further, you know, polluting the attacking pool of options. And as Mo touched on earlier, you're not going to be able to make 11 changes for Champions League games. So there's going to be less minutes going around for these players that are currently featuring regularly in the Conference League. And that makes it a lot harder a juggling act. So right now for Maresca, I think he's managing it quite well. And it's quite easy to manage it because of the games and the level of opposition that we're playing. But I mean, how much of a concern is it for you? Like maybe even the latter parts of this season where, you know, things are getting a bit tight. We maybe get to latter stages of the Conference League. We get to latter stages of the FA Cup potentially as well, where you then suddenly revert from playing that so-called B team and you start putting the stronger guys out to make sure you get the job done. Mate, he's got a difficult balancing act coming up. And it wouldn't surprise me over the next, maybe certainly this summer and maybe the summer of 2026 as well, where you look at it and you think, do you know what? There could be a number of quite big names that will look to leave Chelsea because of a lack of game time, because there's just too many quality options.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we could see some real big names start to question where their future lies because of the issue of squad competition at Chelsea. I think we saw with Madueke and how he left the pitch at the weekend just how fragile these players are. You know, before a while ago, players would get substituted off and they'd be annoyed and they'd sit on the bench and they'd think, right, next week I'm not getting taken off. I'm going to score. I'm going to force myself back into this team. Now they get off. They leave. They call up their agent. They say, find me another club. That's what they do. And I genuinely think that what Madueke did at the weekend won't sit very well with Maresca or the board, because they're all about this unity and this camaraderie and togetherness that we're showing. You know, after the end of the conference game, people are clapping that haven't played, that haven't been in the squad. And I think that is just totally against it. And I think if players don't want to be there or they're going against the grain at Chelsea, managers, players, staff members, whoever, I think they'll be removed under this new ownership, because I think they've made it very clear that if you go against the grain, if you don't want to sign a long contract, if you don't want to do and work in the way that this club is moving now, you'll be removed from the club, or you'll be banished. I mean, we're seeing it even with under 21 players at the moment in Achimpong, which we've spoken about. We saw it with Conor Gallagher, Carney Chukwuemeka, Ben Chilwell. Unless you're happy to fit in with how this club want to go, they'll leave you behind and they'll move you on, which is a ruthlessness that this club needs, because I think it actually removes player power in a sense of the word, to be honest with you. So yeah, Champions League football is going to be an interesting one. I think we've said it before. I do not believe 11 players can be rotated, or 22 players can be rotated for 11 changes in the Champions League. I just don't buy it.
You can't do it. Like, you absolutely
like
can't.
Cole Palmer's going to want to play Champions League football, right?
Yeah, of course he is.
Oh, by the way, Cole, we're going to leave you out the squad. He'll turn around and be like, all right, I'm leaving then. Because
Do
he's going to want to play.
Do you think you would sell to a rival of the top 4?
Yeah, I don't
Chelsea
think they're
prepared to
bothered
do that. Chelsea prepared to do that. We've seen
because
Chelsea
you know who's
sell.
interested in Madueke. I think it will be.
Well, Newcastle were reportedly interested in the summer. I mean, nothing really come of it, but there will be suitors for it. I mean, like we know that you've got to have, you know, a strong squad. You've got to have like quality options, because there is going to be rotation. You don't want the level to drop off too much from the first 11. But I mean, Mo, where do you stand on Chelsea's squad at the moment? Because obviously, what you can see what the idea is, you can see what they're trying to do, and it's great to have these options, you know, and it's all very well, you know, we're rotating, you know, 2 different teams, one for the Conference League, one on a Sunday, so it doesn't really affect you too much and all that. But you know, if Chelsea do get as and when Chelsea get back into the Champions League and whatnot, do you see it potentially being an issue? Because as we've touched on, from a Premier League game on a Saturday to a Champions League game on a Tuesday, it's not going to be 11 changes. It might be 3 or 4. And then you're going to have a lot of players who aren't playing in the Premier League, who then aren't playing in the Champions League either. But then you've also got to have a decent squad to compete on multiple fronts. So do you think Chelsea have maybe potentially gone too far one way, where there's too many quality options? I mean, where do you sit on kind of the balance of the squad?
Actually, there is not a lot of quality option, though. The quality is good. It's not amazing. Like, I think you're very light in the midfield, for example.
I would
Very
agree.
light. Very light. Dewsbury Hall, Enzo Fernandez, Lavia Caicedo, done. That's it. Because I'm not
Andre
gonna count.
Santos maybe come back next season as well.
I've seen this movie many times. It's gonna come back.
Dewsbury Hall might even leave, apparently. I mean,
I
there's
I wouldn't be surprised. Mate, we spent 30 million on him, and he's not even making Premier League squads.
I actually think he's good. I think
I
Maresca
like him.
is not. I think Maresca's not using him. He doesn't suit. He's more of a frantic player, and that is what Maresca doesn't like. He doesn't like frantic players that run up and down, up and down, up and down. He likes more composed players, that is why he's not using
Just
him.
on that, Mo, I don't know how you feel either, Charlie, but like, I believe this Chelsea team is at its best when it's allowed to be frantic. Like, I think we look so good in transition and running at pace and being unpredictable. Obviously, Maresca doesn't want that. Well, I mean, what do you guys?
Well,
He doesn't want that. That's why he plays Lavia and Caicedo. Did you see Lavia and Caicedo stand on the ball?
Yeah.
Yes, Charlie. But again, he likes Lavia and Caicedo to stand the ball like the centre backs of Man City. Really, I've seen Caicedo and Lavia stand on the ball, standing still in the midfield, waiting for the opposition to make the move.
But do you not think that, and Charlie, you probably do as well, like when we've played our best football this season has arguably been when in those games where we've not stood still, we've let up a little bit of control and just like ran at these teams and caused havoc.
Well, you look at Wolves away, for example, which there was a lack of control in that game, particularly first half. But then second half, we go out and we smash 4 goals in. You look at Brighton at home. Yes, I know they played a high line and it sort of played into our hands a little bit. But that first half especially was, well, that's where all the goals were. It was very end to end, and it seemed to suit us better. I get it. He wants more control in games, and we don't want to have a Pochettino type situation where every week was an end to end basketball game. But I get what you're saying, Dan. Like, it's no coincidence for me where in some of the games recently where you would say we've had more control, we've not really, I don't say we've played badly, but we've not created as many chances. Now, I'm not saying, because we're having more control in the game and it's not as end to end that we can't create chances. But I don't know, there's something about games being, as you say, games being a bit frantic, which maybe suits this Chelsea team better. I know you're going to get more spaces and we've got the players that can hurt them and whatnot. But I think when you play a bit more of a pragmatic style of football, where you're looking for more control, you have a Lavia and Caicedo pivot, right, which probably is better for the balance of the team and it offers you more defensive stability. But we've spoken about this before. And I had an interesting conversation the other day. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Mo. Do you think Cole Palmer plays better when Enzo Fernandez is in the team than when it's a Lavia Caicedo pivot? Because I actually think, I've been thinking about this. I don't know if this is just a coincidence or this is just like nothing, but Palmer's not been as effective in games. And you can look at the opposition and whatnot, but I think there's a bit of a trend where Palmer hasn't been as effective in games when Enzo Fernandez doesn't play.
I disagree with you, actually.
You disagree?
Yeah. It's not about... You think only about offensive things. Is my mic coming through right now?
You're good.
You're good mic now.
Yeah, you're good.
Mic. It's actually the mic was connected here for some reason.
Yeah.
No, I actually think that you're thinking about it only from one aspect of the game, which is the offensive part. The Cole Palmer is not good. I believe if your midfield have Enzo, Caicedo, and Cole Palmer is so unbalanced, and you get hit on the transition because Caicedo is left on his own.
Yeah.
I don't think the problem is Enzo Fernandez or Lavia or Caicedo with Cole Palmer. I just think Cole Palmer did not show up in big games. It has nothing to do with Enzo or Caicedo or Lavia. He just phased out. There was 15 minutes in the Arsenal game where he touched the ball twice. That is, your number 10, your main catalyst, should not touch the ball twice in 15 minutes. And
No,
that, by the
I
way,
agree.
and he was popping left and right. And it's not on him. It was the teammates not finding the passes to him, not finding them. Maybe because Arsenal were that good. Again, it's Man United. He looked not great. I don't think it's Enzo. I genuinely don't believe that the Enzo guy suits Chelsea at all. At the current moment, at least. He thinks very slow. He doesn't contribute defensively as much. And when you have a player like Cole Palmer, who is what I like to do percentages. Cole Palmer is more of a 90-10. He's a 90% offensive player, 10% defensively.
Yeah.
It's very obvious that he doesn't contribute as much, and you have to compensate for that lack of defensive contribution by having a Caicedo and a Lavia there. I don't think that you get the best of Cole Palmer when Enzo's there, because actually Enzo Fernandez likes to get on the ball more than Cole Palmer. So actually, it actually, I don't like, if someone wants to have 100 touches on the ball, what is Cole Palmer gonna do if Enzo Fernandez wants to go to dictate the game? So I think Lavia and Caicedo suits him better for whatever reason. To be honest, I don't know why it didn't work out for him.
I mean, Dan, what are your thoughts on it? Because obviously the midfield balance is important, and you know you've got different ways of looking at it. You know, we know that when you play Lavia and Caicedo, you are sacrificing a bit of creativity for more defensive stability and perhaps a better balance in the team. And that's why I think when Enzo's not playing, that's why Gusto, Cucurella, whoever it is picking up those spaces in that left 10 or right 10 or whatever it might be. But those are sort of the spaces that Palmer wants to occupy. Now, do you think that potentially because we're pushing that fullback so high up that that's maybe having a negative impact on Palmer's game because Augusto or Cucurella is picking up that space in the pocket like Palmer likes to pick up? Do you think that's maybe one of the reasons potentially why Palmer has been a bit less effective in recent weeks? Because I don't think it's any coincidence that it's coincided with the fullback. It's coincided with Enzo dropping out the team and the fullback pushing up into that number 10 role.
Yeah, but yes, I do. I think it's having a massive impact, to be honest with you. I think it's obvious to see that Gusto is arriving in the places where Cole Palmer thrives in. And Cole Palmer, since the Newcastle game, has done a lot of his operating out towards the left-hand side pocket because Cucurella is no longer inverting not to the extent that he was. He's allowed to go forward and he's allowed to drop into that midfield, but he's definitely not sort of appearing in the 10 role. Because Lavia and Caicedo are in midfield now, Gusto is doing it on the right and Cole Palmer's now doing it on the left. I just don't think that works. I think Gusto is not the player you want to see in one of your most dangerous positions on the pitch. I think what Maresca's doing is he's trying to fit a lot of players into his system to get it working perfectly. And I actually think when you've got a player that's of the ability of Cole Palmer, you build your team around him and he becomes key to how your system works. You don't move Cole Palmer to a position where he then becomes less favourable in what he can do. I have to say, I actually think off the back of last game, I know Pedro Neto did very well out on the right, but I think he can do a job on the left. I obviously don't think he's going to put up numbers because I don't think he's going to be as good if he cuts inside on his right. But I'd like to see Cole Palmer maybe go out to the right-hand side again. I just feel like that when he's out there on the right, I don't feel like he gets marked as much as he does when he's playing centrally. I feel like he sort of drifts into that space and picks up the ball unmarked and he can see the game a little bit better. And I think last year, for the most part of the season, he came from that side of the pitch. I think there's players on Chelsea's bench that could do a job in 10 and actually probably are more of a goal threat than Noni Madueke or Pedro Neto as well. And that's how I think you get Nkunku or João Felix into the team. And I'd like to see that, but I'm not sure when it will happen. To be honest,
hold on. So you think Neto left, Palmer right, João Felix or Nkunku behind Jackson?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think if you put Nkunku there, I think that then puts 3 unbelievable goal scorers on the pitch all at once in Jackson, Nkunku and Cole Palmer. They're all very good finishers. I think Neto is very creative. I don't think that team lacks creativity.
Don't you think that is so... It's very offensive, isn't it?
No, because I think it's exactly the same as having Madueke. I think Cole Palmer just does Madueke's role to a better level. I think he's way more consistent. And I think Nkunku is used to, if not Nkunku, João Felix, they're both way better and more used to operating in the 10, I think, than Cole Palmer. I think when I think of Cole Palmer and I think of his best moments in a Chelsea shirt, I'm not sure they're coming from a central area, to be honest with you. I think it's when he's got the ball out wide and been allowed to drift in. I think he just, I don't know, is he not more like a Mahrez?
No, mate, I hear you
Palmer.
on. No, but I hear you on that.
No,
But
Really?
look, I think he can. By the way, like no one's. This is not blaming others for Palmer being poor. By the way, this is about coming up with different. This is about coming up with different solutions, and I think that's the one thing that I would say disappointed. Others would say disappointed me, but I think the one thing that we need to see differently is that if Palmer is having a quiet game in a 10, right, it's up to Maresca and the staff, and maybe Palmer himself. We need to find different solutions. If you're being man-marked, you're being doubled up on in a central area, let's try something different, like Dan said. Let's put Palmer to the right. Let's put an Nkunku in the middle. Let's just mix things up and try something different, because there's no point just continuing to play with Palmer being marked out of the game and not doing anything different to try and get him into the game. So, I mean, Mo, what from your point of view? I mean, obviously Palmer's been a bit quieter in recent weeks. What do you think Chelsea should be looking to do potentially to get more out of Palmer in games where he is quiet? Do you think, put him to the right-hand side, put an Nkunku or a Felix in the 10 is something that should be tried?
no. I think he should play in the 10.
Will be a bit,
Yeah.
but just
Should
leave
be
it.
float. Just leave him play. I don't think he
But
plays on
even
the
if he's
side.
even if he's totally marked out the game and is not doing anything, just leave him in the 10.
He's not. He wasn't marked out of the game against Arsenal. He wasn't marked out of the game. Thomas Partey. You both were in the game. Thomas Partey didn't follow him around like a shadow. He didn't. This thing that some of the Chelsea fans did, the coping mechanism, were like, but Thomas Partey stopped him by going around. That didn't happen in the game. Actually, I saw Cole Palmer being frustrated for not getting the ball. You know what is the best example of this? In the goal that Chelsea scored, Enzo Fernandez received the ball, looked left, Cole Palmer looking him in the eye, and Enzo Fernandez chose to turn to the other side and pass it. Yes, it turned into a goal, but I would assume that the coaches would say, find Cole Palmer. If he has half a yard, give him the ball, let him work. That's what coaches do. Enzo Fernandez chose, look Cole Palmer in the eye, and then turn the other way to pass to Neto, which is fine, right? But this is what's taking Cole Palmer out of the way. I saw Caicedo, by the way, in the first half. Cole Palmer went to the left. He's asking for the ball, and Caicedo chose to go to Madueke instead. It's a choice. That is on the coaching.
But last season, where Madueke and Neto were, is the exact area that Cole Palmer thrived in. Like, absolutely thrived in.
I actually thought that Cole Palmer last season was the right winger with an inside forward instead of a touchline winger like Madueke.
Exactly what it was.
Yeah, but Madueke and Neto are both of a...
Yeah, but look at where Neto picks up the ball.
That doesn't happen often. That doesn't happen often.
It does. It happens a lot. If you look at where Gusto is picking up the ball, that whole pocket is Gusto. If you remove Gusto from that role and allow him to focus on his defensive duties, Cole Palmer will find that pocket every single time.
You're talking about changing the whole of the way.
No, I'm not. Because Maresca's already done it. Because if you remove Gusto from that inverted 10 where he's getting on the ball so much and like not a lot is happening when he gets there, which is a shame because he's actually doing that role really well. He's exactly where he needs to be.
Mate, he understands that role tactically. He's just not got the quality on the ball. Hasn't got the quality on the ball.
Exactly
to do it.
Unfortunately, for that reason, it's not working, yeah? Because his end product isn't good enough. Turn him into an overlapping winger. Allow Cole Palmer to have the freedom to occupy the space that Gusto is. Gusto can go out wide and overlap Palmer whilst he inverts. And we saw how good Gusto was at doing that role last season. For me, I don't think there's an issue because I think Gusto has got the ability to get up and down as a right-hand side fullback.
But we've seen fullbacks invert earlier this season, right? And they're not taking up that advanced position that high up the pitch.
Because Enzo Fernandez...
Enzo was playing. That's why, isn't it? Because
because Lavia and Caicedo are now occupying the space that Cucurella was inverting into.
Yeah,
they're good enough to cover all that area, so you don't need a fullback to invert and make a third midfielder.
You actually look at it, since Lavia returned, I actually think our results have probably been worse rather than better because I think
we scored less goals and created less chances.
I think it's actually hindered us. And I don't think it's because of the lack of creativity that Enzo offered. I think it's just he's moved other players into positions where you're not getting the best out of them. You don't get the best out of Malo Gusto in a 10. You don't get the best out of Cole Palmer on the left side of the pitch. Cucurella, you actually get the best out of him when he was allowed to invert into central midfield. So what do you prefer? Your system to be perfect or to get results?
Yeah, I hear it. Look, I don't think there's any issue with, like, to be honest, we've seen Maresca not even invert the fullback. So if we're going to stick with if we're going to stick with Lavia and Caicedo in midfield, right? Maybe if Cucurella is playing at left back, let's just try him as a standard left back. Maybe let's not try any inverting for a few games if you're going to continue with Lavia and Caicedo, because I agree with you, Dan. The inverting the fullback doesn't work as well when it's Lavia and Caicedo in there, because they're able to cover the space like Mo said. So you don't actually need the extra body in there. But with a Fernandez, you do need that extra body in there, and it works well. So maybe we have a situation where we're a bit more adaptable, where if you're going to play a Lavia and a Caicedo, you don't invert the fullback. But if you play an Enzo Fernandez with a Lavia or with a Caicedo, you then invert the fullback to make up for the fact that Enzo doesn't cover as much ground.
I don't understand what Enzo offers, to be honest, more than Clavio. I don't understand.
He offers more creativity.
He's not that great.
But in terms of range of passing,
he's not that good.
No, but he's better than Lavia, though, in his range of passing, though.
I don't think he thinks quick. I don't think he thinks quick enough.
No. So
I definitely think he's slower in thought.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Which is, it closes the angles on always on your players when you're very. Yeah. I get what you're saying. You know what, Charlie? I know what you're doing, and I feel a victim of this before. When I see couple of passes from somebody, I say, "Oh, they got that in their locker." I don't say that about players until I see it consistently. Until I see someone who receives the ball, do the diagonal one. Give me an example. Virgil van Dijk. Every time Virgil van Dijk gets the ball, you know that he's going to go for the diagonal one for Salah, or he's going to go for the diagonal ball on the left if he's on the right side. I haven't seen Enzo Fernandez regularly do that. I've seen glimpses, right, of it every now and then, but regularly he hasn't done it. He has done. Give me how many diagonal or long passes that Enzo has done in his Chelsea career. You can count them on two hands, 10, 9. That's not consistent enough over the amount of games he played for me to say, you got this in your locker. Maybe I need to build around you and hide your flaws so you can do that for me on the pitch.
No, I agree. I agree with you that he's not done enough to warrant the team being built around him. But I mean, I've asked Dan this before, so I'll come to you first, Mo. Like, if Enzo Fernandez is going to play in this Chelsea team, and Chelsea spent a lot of money on him, and they are going to do everything they can to find a way to make it work. Where do you, if you're the manager, Mo, where do you think the best place to play Enzo Fernandez is in this current team and this current setup? Where would you put him to get the best out of him, regardless of if you're a fan of him or not? What do you think needs to be done to get the best out of him in this Chelsea team?
To be honest with you, maybe play 3 guys up top that actually 2 of them can score goals. So maybe what Dan has said. However, I don't think you can play Enzo with a Joao Felix or Nkunku. That is too offensive for me. You will get, and if you play Cole Palmer on the right and you play Enzo Fernandez and Joao Felix up top in transition, when you have possession, you're wide open in the midfield. Caicedo has to cover so much ground on his own. The only way that works, right? If you actually turn into a 3 midfield like Arsenal, a 3 midfielders that none of them are a 10, right? And maybe one of them is a DM that can be a Caicedo. The problem is you don't have these guys yet. You don't have the hybrid 8 that can do both. You either have a very offensive player that can Nkunku, Palmer, Joao Felix, or you have the guys that are more leaning towards, I'm going to sit, I'm going to receive the ball, I'm going to do the short passes, which is the Lavias and the Caicedos. Enzo Fernandez might, for example, Enzo Fernandez might work in a 3-man midfield that consists of Barellas, Enzo Fernandez, and Caicedo. Why? Barella for Inter does a lot of work on both aspects and also can be higher on the pitch. You don't have these guys. Your recruitment has dictated who you choose.
Like
He's a
his
number
role?
8. He's a
an
box to
8,
box.
right.
He's a box-to-box eight.
I think Casado can get to that. I think he can.
He could be a box-to-box eight, Casado.
Yes, but
I don't think he's
you've
ready
seen him in the
just
attacking
yet.
third. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I don't think he's that.
he
He's a Barella. Barella can cross. So Barella, guys, when he goes forwards for Inter, Barella has assists. Like he racks up numbers in terms of like, and these numbers are not like through passes, like I said, like crosses. Like as an 8, he goes and occupies the right side sometimes to cross, be on the edge of the area and cross. He's that guy, but also he contributes defensively a lot. He's that guy. You don't have that guy. You just and I don't think Caicedo can. I think Caicedo can be molded to be an amazing 6. And I'm gonna say this, and people are not gonna like this. His ball control and his destruction on the pitch should allow him to play in a top team that challenges and play the role of Rodri in that place. Is he in Rodri's level? No, but he's 23 years old.
Yeah.
He's 23 years old. If you give Pep Guardiola Caicedo, he will mold the guy by the age of 27 like Rodri to be that important to the team. The reason why, he's very strong physically. He thinks quick on the ball. He can receive with the back to the goal, and he can pass these short passes and create angles for his teammates. That's what you need. What you need to teach the guy is positioning now. That comes with age, with experience. But he has all the attributes to be a top defensive midfielder. And it doesn't have to be a defensive midfielder that defends. Because by the way, Rodri doesn't defend as much, but he knows where to stand on the pitch to do the interceptions.
I mean, Dan, when you look at Enzo, right, and what we've just talked about there, we saw it. We've seen it once this season where he played all 3 of them, and it was the opening day against City, and we kind of the consensus was it didn't really work. But I mean, do you agree with Mo that potentially one way to get the best out of Enzo Fernandez?
Can you put that guy's comment?
Which one? Caicedo is Kante 2.0. Well, this one.
How does he watch football? Do you really think that guy's...
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't agree with. I think they just look similar in terms of their body type.
Are you serious?
But I mean, Dan, sorry, just quickly on this 3-man midfield thing, right? I think Mo does have a point where I think Enzo Fernandez potentially could be better in a 3-man midfield. We saw it against City first day of the season. The consensus was it didn't really work. We haven't seen it since. Do you think that is potentially something that I'm not saying they're going to see it or whatever, but do you think that's one way where actually, do you know what? If you have Lavia playing as the 6, Caicedo is that box-to-box 8, and Enzo can almost be a free roaming role in midfield to a certain degree. And then you have a Palmer on the right-hand side drifting in like he did last season. You have an out-and-out width on the left through Neto, and then you have your Jackson or whoever it is through the middle. Do you actually think that a 3-man midfield could be the best way to unlock Enzo?
Maybe. I've got a funny feeling that the club believe they could make Enzo Fernandez a 10. And I think that's why they, like a number of different managers with different styles and systems have tried him at a 10. I actually don't think he's got it to be a real attacking midfielder, to be honest with you.
He's not good enough on the ball. I don't think he's good enough.
I don't think he is. And I sort of have wondered many times watching with this potential 3 in midfield is it a bit like an old-fashioned Juventus midfield where they had absolute destroyers either side of Pirlo, who was sort of given a license to create from a slightly deeper role? And then, I mean, Liverpool did it with Gerrard in his latter years as well. A man that doesn't have to get around the pitch as much because he's got 2 players that are able to do all of his physical work and basically carry him through the game, but he obviously creates. But then I watch Enzo Fernandez and sometimes I think, do you know what? You're not showing me the creativity and the dictator sort of ability that these other players have had. I don't think Enzo Fernandez ever truly runs a game of football. I just think eventually what we're going to see is he will move deeper and deeper the longer he stays in the Prem. And I think we've seen it the last couple of weeks, and I actually think he's looked better for it against Panathinaikos, and then obviously when he came on against Arsenal, he looks better when he's got someone alongside him sitting in a double pivot and he can just be allowed to get on the ball and try to play shorter, less riskier passes that sort of allow him to dictate the tempo. Look, I don't know. I'm so puzzled with Enzo Fernandez because I actually think that we all just thought he was going to be something that he isn't. And I think physically he's comparable to like a Cesc Fabregas, but ability-wise, I don't think he's anywhere near it, and mentally-wise, I don't think he's anywhere near it. And I think for that is going to be something that restricts him in the Premier League for so long.
I mean, you look at Argentina, Mo, and he plays with what? McAllister, and he played with Rodrigo de Paul as well. Now, we know that, I mean, I don't think McAllister is similar to Caicedo. I don't really think Rodrigo de Paul is similar to Caicedo in that sense. But, you know, when you look at Enzo at Argentina, what do you think so different about the way that Argentina set up a midfield that seems to get so much more out of him?
They have Messi.
But it's not just that though, is it?
It is.
No, but the balance in the midfield though. What did you think of the World Cup? De Paul, McAllister,
they have Messi.
So you think
is Messi's role? Okay, this is.
Okay,
I'm not
let me
comparing
explain.
the two.
Go ahead, Dan. But I have a
role-
very good explanation for
Yes,
I'll look forward
Messi's
to it.
role. Surely, Cole Palmer's role should be comparable to Messi's role for Argentina for Chelsea.
But Cole Palmer is not Messi. I'm gonna give you guys.
No, I
why.
know that. But
Messi is the get out of jail card. When you have Messi, you're playing with 12 players, and oppositions normally are so scared of trying to press you higher, play man to man, or push on every midfield. So you always have that extra man free, always, and that is allowed. The Enzos and Paredes looked good on the ball. Paredes is not a good player on the ball, right? But because you have Lionel Messi, right, you always have that extra guy. So you have the pass. The pass is already ready for you.
Yeah.
Right. And that is what made Enzo look good in Argentina. He had the problem, the difference between playing in the Premier League and playing with Messi is that playing with Messi gives you that extra second, half a second to think. That is what Enzo doesn't get in the Premier League. That's why every time he receives the ball, there's already someone roughing him off the ball. He doesn't have spaces that he gets. He doesn't receive the ball facing the pitch with Chelsea as much as you receive it when you're playing with Lionel Messi. That's how good Lionel Messi is. Literally, he doesn't have that extra half a second that he gets when you play with the get out of jail card. Messi, it's just simple. I don't know if you guys played Monopoly, but he is the guy. And the problem is Cole Palmer is not that guy yet. So Cole Palmer is not that guy yet for the oppositions to give the midfielders deeper on the pitch time to compensate for having Cole Palmer closer to the goal. They don't. So they are allowed to go, and every time Enzo gets the ball, we're roughing the guy. We're going to tackle the guy. We're going to do a man-to-man in the midfield. That is the problem. I mean, that's my opinion on it.
Dan, how long do you think, I mean, this is all very sort of presumptuous and sort of throwing things ahead a little bit, but how long do you think Chelsea will stick with Enzo Fernandez for? Just in terms of, let's say he has another season where he contributes a bit, but there's still the conversation around, we're not really sure what his best position is, how to get the best out of him in the team. How long do you think it'll be until Chelsea sort of start to think that maybe, not that they've made a mistake, but maybe it might be time to look at exploring different options? Because for me, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but if we have another season similar to last season where there were some good games, but on the whole, there's still the conversation, we're not sure what he is, we're not sure where his best position is and whatnot. How long do you think Chelsea might potentially think about thinking, this hasn't worked out, maybe it's just we cut our losses and we just accept we got this one wrong?
I think Chelsea are probably starting to think that now. I think some of the directors must have an inkling. Hang on a minute, this hasn't gone exactly how we thought it was going to go with him, because I think they're probably seeing some of the performances that have been put in from Enzo Fernandez, and they're thinking, right, how do we get the best out of him? I think there's probably a joint decision somewhere that they've agreed to try Enzo Fernandez in a slightly different role, as probably, I'm not sure if it's the last roll of the dice, but it's one of the last rolls of the dice. I think if it turns out that, because I think actually inevitably either Caicedo or Lavia will eventually either miss games for injury because of the history suggesting that.
Well, even the Christmas period coming up now,
exactly,
games every
right.
2-3 days. Enzo's going to have to start some.
He'll be given a chance in the Premier League to play in a deeper role. And I think it depends if he takes that with both hands or not. If he takes it with both hands, I think he will start to earn a little bit more respect and people will get more of an understanding of what he actually brings to the club and who he is as a footballer. I know people are saying it's going to be hard to sell because of the length of contract, and I think that makes it difficult. But I think what you have to remember is as long as Chelsea can potentially get close to profit and they pay off a chunk of how much he costs if you think he's probably 10 million a season, so he probably only knocked off 20, 30 million off of what he was worth on his contract. So I don't know, by the time we sell him, which is probably not this season, maybe next, you might be looking at having to get about 50 million. I wonder whether or not he'll do enough in that time to sort of interest another team from elsewhere in Europe or Saudi Arabia or something like that to take a risk on him. But I think basically what it is if it doesn't work out in a deeper role, they will start to form an exit plan for Enzo Fernandez. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, I think it's something they might potentially think about if we have another season similar to last season, this season. I think he's got this season and probably next season. If there's not a drastic improvement and a drastic upturn in form in terms of controlling games, dictating the pace of games and really stamping his authority on this Chelsea team, then there's going to be a situation where, you might have to look at it and think, we got this one wrong.
He could go on loan, by the way. If it looks
he's going to go on loan.
If he's not in the team by probably this point next season, I actually think he might, unless he can get a move, I think he might try and force a loan, only because he'll want to guarantee his position in the World Cup squad.
Yeah, that's the thing. And
try and force a loan.
No, I agree with you on that, Dan. That's why I think Nkunku's situation is the same as well, which is why I think he could well not take the gamble and leave in the summer, because if he stays and has another season similar to this one, how it's going so far, he's only just got himself back in the France setup. The World Cup's coming up at the end of next season. I think you're going to see a number of international players who aren't playing that regularly at Chelsea looking to leave this summer or in January to get themselves some football ahead of the World Cup. So I think you are going to see one or two players, maybe a few more that look to move on. I mean, Mo, do you just think, just like briefly before we wrap this up, because I know we got to go in a sec. Just last thoughts, man, and we'll round out. Do you think that Chelsea just got it wrong with Enzo Fernandez? Do you just think it was one of them with Todd Bowley just in as a
that was a World Cup signing? It was the marquee signing of the January transfer window. Let's silence the fans, because you remember the fans were not happy. It was the Potter time, and my God, let's silence these guys with the new ownership, you know what I mean? And I think it was just to silence people, and a lot of Chelsea fans went behind the signing, and they were fighting for their lives on streams to prove that Enzo Fernandez is one of the best midfielders in the league. I remember that time. So Bowley succeeded. Did he get his money's worth? Yeah, because people just shut up and they stopped talking about him and they started defending Enzo Fernandez. But in terms of as a football player, he has been here already 2 seasons. Now we're in November. In 2 months, it's been 2 years. You haven't proven your 2 years. You haven't proven anything yet. You're still having people on shows questioning, are you even good for the Premier League, let alone Chelsea Football Club?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It is a tricky one. I mean, I honestly, this might sound mad. I think he'd be like a perfect Kroos replacement at Real Madrid. Like, honestly, I think La Liga, the pace of the game, playing in that team would suit him very, very well. I think he'd do very well in a league like Serie A. There's definitely places where he can go that, this, by the way, this guy's a very good footballer. This is not a quality issue. This is just, I don't know what it is.
He's not a very good footballer.
Mo, would you be shocked if he went to a different league and he performed really well?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, because he's not a scrub. Like, the guy has qualities. He can pass the ball. He can receive. He's not he's not a championship level player. But he needs, I said that before, Enzo Fernandez is not that good for teams to build around him.
No.
So he needs to adjust to the team. Like, he's not a Pirlo for Inter, for example, to build around the guy. He is all right. Like, if he goes to Inter, to be honest, and play with a midfield of Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Barella, might work. What work? He's not going to get
Could
a
you
starting
ever
11
think-
because
could you
Zelensky
ever
is better
think
than him.
Çalhanoğlu would end up as a 6, though. Do you know what I mean?
No,
Like, this is-
no, I doubted that. I doubted.
Me neither. So this is what there is potentially a future for Enzo.
Yeah, but he's
somewhere.
way more athletic, and the passing. To be honest with you, it is day and night between. There are two levels between Enzo Fernandez and Hakan Çalhanoğlu in terms of passing ability and striking ability, and even vision. To be honest with you, I know you guys don't watch, but you can tell. Like even in the games against Arsenal and against Man City, this guy has an elite vision and he has an elite way of striking or passing the ball between the lines.
But he's
Enzo
not
Fernandez
older,
doesn't
is
have. Yeah, exactly. Someone is 30, someone is 24. So there are ways to go about Enzo. So
Yeah, no, I hear it. I mean, we could talk about this all day. I know we're going to round it out now. Guys, thanks for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. Good chat as always. Mo, let the people know where to find you if they don't already know.
We actually have a show in 45 minutes with Flawless, Nina, and Kelkster, the Man City fan. That will be an exciting show. We're not talking Arsenal or Liverpool, which is the first time in a while. We're talking more Chelsea, Indo Vanera for Pep Guardiola, and Amorim taking over. And Man United fans believe it's an end of an era again for Man City, and it's the start of an era. So we'll hear.
Yeah, guys, make sure you head over, check that out. Mo and Dan are both in the description. There is their tags. You just got to click on it, go and subscribe. Dan, let the people know where you're at, what channels you're jumping on, your own channel, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'll be live throughout the weekend and in the build up to returning from the international break. It's at BDB Dan across YouTube, TikTok, all the socials. But yeah, pleasure coming on, Charlie. It's been a great show.
Nah, always a pleasure, lads. Nice one. Guys, make sure you check out both the channels there, both tagged in the description. Just click on it, subscribe, go and show the guys some love. Loads of great content. Guys, make sure you're smashing the likes on the way out. Subscribe to myself if you haven't done so already. And I'll be back probably again tomorrow with some more stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Until then, guys, take care and we'll catch you again soon.